Hi, I'm Lara.
I'm Brock.
And welcome to TEFL Talk. Hi, welcome to our very first episode of TEFL Talk. I'm here with my co-host, Brock Brady.
How you doing?
Brock is our resident expert in all things TEFL, and he's going to walk us through the 5 do's and don'ts of classroom management. So without further ado, Brock, can you kick us off with the first do of classroom management?
Okay, the first do of classroom management is do use attention getters. Well, that got my attention, but I don't think it settled me and made me ready for work.
Okay.
And you don't have to make a lot of noise to use an attention getter. One of them that's very often used is that the teacher puts her hand up and walks around the room and gestures to each of the students to put their hand up as well. And you can even put your finger in front of your mouth to indicate silence. And you walk around, and within a short time, everybody in the class has their hand raised. Everyone is being quiet, and you're ready to go to work.
Great. Okay, so the first do of classroom management is do use attention grabbers, but not the frightening ones like I did with Brock. All right, how about do number 2?
Well, do number 2 is very similar. If you're doing a transition in the classroom and you need the students to move, you want them to move in a timely fashion. For example, you might say, okay, get with your partner. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you there? Okay, great.
So something like move, 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 move would be maybe not in your classroom management repertoire?
Well, if you were out on the football field, it would be great.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. All right, so number 2 is use countdowns. All right, Brock, how about number 3?
Number 3 is give wait time. I love wait time. I've found that almost in every case, if you give 8 count for wait time, somebody eventually will raise their hand and come up with an answer. So I ask a question, I'm thinking in my head, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous now. 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000. There's a hand. You're giving them time to think.
Okay.
That's the problem with the typical teacher response. They're quiet for too long, and you cut in before they've had a chance to come up with an answer.
Okay, great. So do number 3 is give wait time, and specifically an 8-second count. All right, Brock, how about number 4?
Number 4 is be consistent and stick to routines. One of the things you want to do is to make your class structure as boring as possible. And that seems counterintuitive, I know, but it's the idea is that if you do the same kinds of things in every class and you use the same routines over and over again, that's something your students no longer have to process. It's part of the environment. If you think about it, a lot of what we've looked at so far today has all been routines and ways to make the class consistent.
Great, excellent. So do number 4 is be consistent. And our last of the do's before we start in on the don'ts.
Do comprehension checks. And a comprehension check is what you do when you want to make sure that the students have understood. Very often teachers will ask, do you understand? And the student will say, well, some students will be better than that one. A comprehension check is to make sure that the students really understand what you want them to do when you're giving directions. We'll try one more time. So, what is it you're going to do?
I am going to practice the 5 do's and routines.
Why?
Because I want to have successful classroom management. And our last do is do number 5, do comprehension checks. Okay, Brock, thank you for walking us through the 5 do's of classroom management. Let's go ahead and shift gears to the 5 don'ts of classroom management. So can you kick us off with the first don't of classroom management?
Oh, don't waste time. Make crisp starts. A lot of us, I think, have a tendency when we're ready to start a class to look at students coming into the classroom. Somebody's fooling with their books, a couple other people having conversation, and you're going to have some students in the class who weren't walking in and out or talking to their friend, who are sitting there waiting to learn, and they're going to be getting very bored and frustrated. It's being fair to your students. And again, it's another routine. Students know when they walk into your class that, bang, at that point, you'll start out students.
Okay, so don't number 1 is don't waste time. Make sure you get that class started crisp and on time. Great. Can you go ahead and take us through number 2?
Don't accept less than 100% participation when it comes to classroom activities. The point is that once you start an activity, you need to go around and make sure that everybody knows what it is and everybody is doing it from the beginning. Because the longer you wait, if you have to start somebody to work late, that's going to make them feel negative in many ways, but it's also disrupting the rest of the class.
Brock drives a hard bargain. He expects 100%, even though I should mention that 90% is technically an A. Okay, so don't number 2 is don't accept less than 100%.
That's right.
All right, don't number 3.
Don't
Number 3.
There we go. Is don't let students opt out of participating. And a technique that's used by Doug Lemoff in his Teach Like Champion book, which I find very effective, is if you have a student who wasn't able to answer, what you do is you go on to another student, ask them the question, and let's assume they get it right. Then you would ask that second student again, now what was that answer? And they would give it. And then you would go back to the first student and ask them the question. Now, if that student still hasn't answered, maybe the student's being stubborn, then you would go maybe to a third student and ask them for the right answer. By this time, probably everybody else in the class knows what the right answer is, so this is not going to be much of a problem. And they give it the answer, and maybe you have them repeat it. You go back to the first student, and by this time, or maybe the next round like this, the first student has realized that the only way he's going to get off the hook is if he gives the answer.
Great, so number 3 is don't give students an opt-out. All right, how about number 4?
Don't stress negative behavior. Put the emphasis on the positive. So you're in class and you see Enrique bothering Alicia. What you don't want to do is say, Enrique, stop bothering Alicia. Because first of all, he's embarrassed to be caught out. Second, everybody's looking, oh, is Enrique in trouble again? So instead you say to Enrique, Enrique, sit up straight, look at me. Then you've given him only one option. It's the good behavior option, and you've shown him what good behavior is.
Great. So don't number 4 is don't focus on the negative behavior. Instead, focus on the positive behavior you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So we have done most of the do's and don'ts, but we have one left. So if you could go ahead and walk us through the...
I'm sorry.
Oh, I've
No, please.
completely forgotten what I was going to say.
Please don't talk over students just as I'm sorry, talked over you.
I see what you did there.
And particularly in language class, the whole focus is on the students practicing speaking and listening as much as possible. If you're interrupting them, you've interrupted that good practice. But more importantly, psychologically, you've sent the signal that you're not very important to me. I have status.
And that is exactly how I felt, Brock.
Oh, well, I'm so pleased you felt that way.
Okay, so we have walked you through, by we I mean Brock has walked you through, the 5 do's and the 5 don'ts of classroom management.
I couldn't have done it without Lara.
Thank you. Thanks for watching TEFL Talk. If you want updates on new episodes, be sure to subscribe.
Do you have a great idea for a show topic?
Or maybe you just want to say hey. Either way, we would love to hear from you.
Whether you're joining us from Morocco or Ecuador,
Or Mozambique or Ukraine.
just leave us a comment and let us know. Thank you very much.